Hi, you and I have taken quite a few trips to the PS1 library, haven't we? 3 to be exact. And each time we've come out with 5 good games for a total of 15. I've gone back on my own quite a few more times since then because I felt like the series needed a fourth part, but I couldn't find anything. Nothing that felt right, you know? I found plenty of interesting Japan-only titles like Baroque, Athena Awoken from an Ordinary Life, Witch of Salzburg, etc. But I'm still learning how to say cat, so I'm not quite proficient enough to translate my way through any of those games yet. So I went back and looked at the NA and PAL library and I re-examined it. What if I looked at games from established franchises that people think they know, but haven't actually played or only played the more famous title in those franchises? Because there are a lot of those actually, and we're gonna take a look at them, because I found 5 that I think are pretty good and worth a playthrough and a bit underrated. Let's look at some underrated PS1 horror games for a fourth and final time. A final hurrah to the thing that made this channel. Let's get into it. Clock Tower is of course by no means an unknown series. It's an SNES classic, even though it was never officially released in the West. And it saw 2 sequels on the PlayStation that, while bad, still sold well enough for Capcom to buy the IP when the developer Human went belly up and make a sequel, Clock Tower 3, and an eerily thematically similar game, Haunting Ground. It's since then seen a spiritual successor made by the original creator Hifumi Kono, titled Nightcry. Clock Tower is a well-known series, but the original has a lesser-known quasi-remake that released exclusively on the PS1, only in Japan. And I think that regional exclusivity makes it eligible for an underrated status, as we in the West had no way of rating it when it originally released. And due to a fan patch, it's completely playable in English, and we're gonna look at it. Clock Tower The First Fear opens up as a group of young women are on their way to the Burroughs estate. They have just been adopted by Mr. Burroughs and they are making their way through a forest to his mansion, while being accompanied by their caretaker, Mrs. Mary. Arriving in the mansion, Mrs. Mary goes to see Mr. Burroughs and then the children wait in the lobby, but after a long time, Jennifer, our protagonist, decides to go see what is up. What happens from here is kind of random, like mechanically I mean. Clock Tower is a pseudo-randomly generated horror adventure. Jennifer can roam the mansion and come across one of her 3 friends being murdered. In my playthrough it was the one in the green dress being launched through a skylight by Scissorman. Then what happens is that Scissorman starts to chase Jennifer and then we must run and hide. The clever thing about the game, especially for its time, is that dying isn't really as much of a punishment as you would normally think it is. Anytime you fuck up and die by the hands of Scissorman or even a parrot, you can continue from the same room where you left off. After shaking off Scissorman by hiding in this car, we are free to explore the mansion. We have to find the keys to the car, which are right next to it, and then we have to find our remaining living friends and escape. Usually. Like so many other Japanese horror games from this era, there are a lot of endings and they are largely dependent on how many of Jennifer's friends survived the experience. And apparently, you can even keep the initial victim from dying and escape with a full crew. There are also some neat rare encounters that happen in some games but not in others. And I actually managed to come across one in my playthrough. I found a can of insecticide, used it on the freezer with the box, and then I found a golden key, and then I used that to unlock a door where I encountered Mary, who then gave Jennifer a sleepy drink, and then Jennifer passes out and then wakes up in a cage in the basement next to Mr. Burroughs, who we then find out is as much a victim in all of this as us. It's a pretty neat encounter, and it's a pretty neat game overall. It's a little slow, but it's a little slow in a good way. The art style lends itself well to it, and the gameplay is pretty simple. And the entire thing is very short and can be completed in just a couple of hours. It's well worth your time. Next on our list is a bit of a cheeky cheat. It's a game that actually didn't come out, but kind of did, and it also is kind of in development right now. A game that is now referred to by its fanbase as RE 1.5. See, a while back in 2013, a prototype leaked for an earlier build of RE2. The interesting part about this is that it actually confirmed a lot of rumors that had popped up because of earlier screenshots from RE2 during its development showed off things that wouldn't end up being in the final game. A completely standard thing now, but not so much back then. Not that games didn't change during the course of their development, it's just that there weren't many pictures posted of them online or in general in publications. And we rarely got an insight into how games progressed through their development. Couple that with the fact that RE2 development was covered in multiple languages, and those articles written in multiple languages have now been translated as many of 4 times, and yeah, you got the perfect rumor storm. Like RE2 was supposed to star someone named Elsa Walker instead of Claire Redfield, and look, I'm not very knowledgeable about Resident Evil because I don't really like the games, especially not the earlier ones. I am warming up to them as I get older, but I'm not completely there yet. But I do, however, think this is very cool. It's very complete and very different from the main RE game, and it's kinda weird that Capcom never really used it for anything and never really did anything with it until they included Elsa's motorcycle costume in RE2 Make. I love poking around in this, and if you're an RE fan, you should check it out as well. There's so much neat stuff here, like, look, there's a picture of Claire even though she's not supposed to be in the game. Was she maybe an unlockable character? Is she dead? Who knows? And did you know that Kendo doesn't die in his gun store in this version? You can instead find him up on the helipad of the police station, and he helps you out when a murder of crows try to murder you. Yeah, even for someone like me, this is a pretty cool relic to look through. And it's still in development and might one day be a cool little RE game on its own. So if you are a Resident Evil fan, check it out and let me know what you think as a fan of the series. I avoided the Alien games because they were licensed, and Alien 3 on NAS is god awful. But I gotta say, Alien Isolation is not as unique as I have given it credit for. And I'm kind of sad that I missed out on giving these two a go for as long as I did, because they are not bad. And there's a lot of stuff that Isolation gets credit for that was already established in these two games. Alien Trilogy maybe not so much, it's largely a survival horror Doom clone, and the controls are a little too console Doom clone for me. And the enemies and a lot of the objects are largely sprite based, and while that's alright for a 1996 release, Alien Resurrection would blow it out of the water mechanically and graphically 4 years later. And that game now completely eclipses anything I could say about Trilogy. It's really well done, and if it had released one console generation later, it could actually kind of look like a potato mode graphic version of Alien Isolation. The plot sees us step into the space boots of Ridley, who is on a space station that is about to self-destruct. And we must escape. But that is a lot easier said than done. There are a lot of locked doors between us and safety. And we have to find keycards, cut off power, turn on power, scavenge for supplies and ammo. And during all of this, face off against the mercenaries on the station who are also trying to make it to safety, and the xenomorphs who are just looking for a snack. The mercenaries are actually in the first hour a lot harder to deal with than the xenomorphs. They are a lot quieter because they don't want to get snacked on, and they hide behind boxes and in darkness, and when there are more than one, they flank you from multiple sides and will attempt to dodge your gunfire. The xenomorphs, on the other hand, should be harder to deal with on paper. They move extremely fast, they can traverse more surfaces, they hit like a truck, and they have very erratic behavior that seems unpredictable, but it's not. First off, they usually come for you because of a sound you made or a door you opened, and it quickly became routine for me to eye a corner or a corridor before I pushed a button or flicked a lever, and after pushing that button or flicking that lever, I would immediately back into that corner or into that corridor and wait for the xenomorphs and then blast them in their dumb faces when they came charging at me. Mind you, the corner strat only works if you have ammo for the shotgun or the laser rifle. With the stock pistol with unlimited ammo, I recommend retreating to the end of a hallway and aiming where the xenomorph's head will be when it starts charging. No matter what body part you hit, it will go down if you empty a whole clip into it. But if you manage to get a headshot, it will only take 1 or 2 shots to kill it. And later on, you're gonna be facing off against more than one. And while ammo for the better guns is fairly plentiful if you do the bare minimum of scavenging, there will be situations where you are forced to rely on the stock pistol. Not a lot, but be prepared. As you can probably see, this is a first-person shooter, and as you're probably aware, it's a PS1 first-person shooter. These are usually bad, and with games like the Note, Eru, Echo Knight, etc., you have to rebind the camera controls from the shoulder buttons to the sticks and fix it up nicely so that the left stick moves forwards and backwards and straights, and so that the right stick handles the camera. Amazingly enough, Alien Resurrection works almost like a modern shooter, and I only had to go into the game's menu and fix the camera control so that the Y-axis wasn't inverted. It does, however, have a lot of bobbing, and when sneaking through vents the game can be borderline nauseating. But I have a hard time docking points for that because it adds to the atmosphere and it was kind of standard for the time. What I can dock points for, however, and the only thing that really soured my experience with the game, is the story and how it's handled. The game opens up to a cutscene that happens in the movie's opening moments, and then it skips to the escape sequence of that movie, but it never really communicates that to the player, so you are a bit lost on why and how you are escaping. You also talk to someone on the radio who is Cal from the movie, but in the game she's never introduced. And just as we learn the ropes as Ripley, we are dumped into the space boots of Cal, who plays the exact same, but she also has a xenomorph boop boop sound thing that alerts us of incoming aliens. But because she doesn't play much different from Ripley, we kinda just repeat every step we just did as her. Creep through the corridors, use the stock pistol, pick up the shotgun, blast some xenomorphs, turn some levers, pick up the laser gun, blast some more xenomorphs, turn some more levers. It's a bit repetitive for the first moments, and I don't get why the game didn't dump us further into her journey, as it gets more interesting later on when we have to activate multiple gates and face off against multiple xenomorphs. But nitpicks aside, Alien Trilogy and Alien Resurrection are extremely fun games, and Resurrection is quite a lot more competent at horror than its movie counterpart. And while I'm sure the name recognition helped, I feel like the game would have had a better legacy if it was its own standalone IP. If you're an Alien fan and you want to see where Alien Isolation gets a lot of its ideas from, check out these two games. They are quite fun and worth a playthrough. I know I'm definitely returning to them pretty soon. Alone in the Dark proper is pretty famous since it's known as that thing that Resident Evil copied, even though it really didn't. It had 2 direct sequels that did well, but whoever owned the rights felt that it needed a reboot, and so they did that. And that is what the new Nightmare is. Gone is the mustachioed looking, goofy looking Edward Carnby, and in comes leather trench coat wearing slick back black hair Edward Carnby. And while the new Nightmare did commercially well, shipping 1.5 million units, it did so over a period of 4 years, shipping on 5 platforms, and it wasn't quite the smash that Infogrames was hoping for. And they would 7 years later end up kind of erasing this from the Alone in the Dark timeline and make the protagonist of the second reboot the same Edward Carnby from the original trilogy, while maintaining the appearance and style of him from this game, as well as kind of acknowledge that this is an interpretation of what happened during the first game. The new Nightmare is actually really fun and super competent, and I think I might like it a lot more than Resident Evil. See, being a reimagining of the first game, Carnby and a new sexy female sidekick to go to Shadow Island to investigate why some guy has disappeared and what has happened on the island. However, the plane crashes and Carnby and Aline, the sidekick, are separated. They both make their way to the mansion, and if you're playing as Carnby, things begin to get weird already there. Everything is overgrown. There's a mysterious gate and you come across one of the groundskeeper who's very injured and completely delusional, and when you leave him to go look for help he blows his brains out. And then the dogs in the garden starts to chase you after having gotten feral, and then extra dimensional demons pop up and Carnby finds himself inside a deep dark dank sewer seeking shelter from them. At this point you're also gonna be seeing a graphical switch in my playthrough, because as I mentioned earlier, the new Nightmare shipped on 5 platforms and I checked out both the PS1 and the PS2 version, and I found them almost identical. The PS2 version is a bit slower and it takes about a second in between screen transitions, but I went with that one for most of my playthrough because I sit very far from my TV and it was a bit easier to make out the interactable objects in that version. But they are very similar and the PS1 version is completely fine, and I think a lot of people that watch my videos are gonna prefer the PS1 version. Inside the sewer I learned that the game is actually kind of hard. You can't take a lot of hits and there aren't a lot of health packs around to be found. And from the beginning stretch of the game until here there aren't enough available bullets to actually kill all the enemies in those sections. But the game is designed in such a way that while it is harder, it doesn't actually feel unfair when you die. You usually know how to make your way back to the section that you just came from in half the time it took you to get there initially, because you know where the keys and all the levers are. Yes, this is an RE clone, kinda. It's hard to call a sequel to a game that RE borrowed some feature from a clone, isn't it? I mean, the new Nightmare definitely borrows features from Resident Evil, but it seems completely fair because Resident Evil did it first, right? And honestly, it kind of does what RE does, but better. Combat is way more satisfying. Weapons have a very powerful oomph to them, and it takes fewer hits for enemies to kill you, but also fewer hits for you to kill them. So combat is intense and it doesn't wear out its welcome. And one thing I absolutely hate about RE is the fact that there are ancient moon cycle puzzles in modern buildings, and it doesn't make any fucking sense why it's there. But in the new Nightmare it does. This island is an ancient place full of great evil. There's a family of people that have guarded it and researched it for centuries, and the last of their line has gone a bit mad doing so. So it makes total sense that there are secret doors here with dumbass star-shaped keys and statues that need to be rotated. It makes narrative sense where Resident Evil doesn't. And this combined with all the other stuff I mentioned just makes me appreciate this a lot more than Resident Evil, which is honestly not a series I sort of like that much. It's a surprisingly good game and you should absolutely give it a go if you have ever scrolled past it and figured you knew what it was all about, because it's not, I assure you. Hell Knight got to me. Hell Knight broke me. As you probably know, I don't have much of an issue going into the ocean at all times of the year and surfing in storms, even if I'm completely alone and far away from anyone that could potentially rescue me if something happened. But I'm not afraid of it, and I used to be quite afraid of the open waters. I used to be afraid of a lot of things actually. But the yearning for adventure always eclipsed my fear, and over time my fear of the open water in particular has turned into more of a sense of alertness. I'm always very alert when I'm in the water, and I think that alertness has probably saved me quite a few times. One thing, however, that still fucking gets to me is the underground. There aren't a lot of tunnels on the island and not a lot of opportunities to go underground, so that part of me has never really been challenged. And unlike the ocean, tunnels are actually scary. A lot of them are very old and they have service tunnels that are no longer in use, and some of them, like the ones in Tokyo, have elaborate networks built into them so that they could function as bomb shelters during World War II. These networks of tunnels have officially been abandoned, but all over the world, homeless people and wayward drug addicts have taken refuge in them. There are settlements on the major cities completely hidden away, and sometimes ordinary people venture into them and they never come out. Hell Knight knows this because Hell Knight is a Japanese game, and in Japanese urban folklore, tunnels are scary and bad things happen in them. In the game, we're a person that's on a train and that train hits something and crashes. The thing is a monster and it starts to chase us. We run away from it and into the tunnels. As we do, people clad in power armor burst out from a side tunnel and gun down the monster, and we enter the side passage they came from, us and an unknown female. From here, we have to journey through the tunnel to find our way out, and we are very much not alone. There are monsters down here, and they start to chase us. The game combines three of my least favorite genres: visual novels, adventure games, and first-person pre-DualShock analog horror. But it combines them into what became with Hell Knight one of my favorite styles of gameplay. As we make our way through the tunnels, we interact with the girl that is with us. We enter rooms, pick up items, and we use those items to solve puzzles. Like using a crowbar to open a hatch and a key to unlock a maintenance room where there's a power breaker that we can then use to cut off the power so that we can make our way through a flooded part of the tunnels without getting electrocuted. After dodging that and a very fast zombie that lurks in the darkness, we come across a settlement. An old abandoned Imperial Army settlement that the Japanese army built during World War II in case of God knows what. Now it's occupied by a combination of homeless people that accidentally wandered in here, people that are not quite human, and the aging remnants of the army who never saw the war end. We have to make our way past this settlement, but the monsters that we encountered in the tunnels have triggered a lockdown system, and we, along with the tunnel residents, are locked in here with the monsters. And the creatures that lurk in the tunnels are maybe not the worst monsters that lurk down here. During my time with Hell Knight, I found evidence of human experimentation, advanced computer systems that shouldn't be here in a 40s era construction, and evidence of a cult that started here in the tunnels that are using the dark energies that lurk down here to attack the outside world. And I learned that whatever happened to us on the train is related to that somehow. Hell Knight is fucked up, and it makes my skin crawl, and I hate it. But I love that I hate it, and I can't wait to return to its fucked up world beneath the city streets. So that was 5 underrated PS1 horror games that I really recommend. Clock Tower and Resident Evil 1.5 obviously aren't completely available in the state I played them in, but they are freely available online, and if you own a modded PS1, you can buy a fan-made version of both the PS1 and the SNES version of Clock Tower. Alien Trilogy and Alien Resurrection are available for 10 and 20 euro respectively, and I recommend getting Resurrection. At 7 hours, it's a game you can beat on a cold, dark winter day, and it's neat seeing just how much of Isolation's formula they got right 14 years before the release of that game. Alone in the Dark, the New Nightmare can be had for as little as 5 euro, and at that price you kind of must get it. It's a neat little RA clone and a better alternative to something like Evil Dead Hail to the King or Countdown Vampires, or, well, in my opinion, even a better alternative than to RE itself. Hell Knight is the most expensive of the bunch, and it goes for about 35 euro. It's a PAL exclusive unfortunately, so you Americans are gonna have to find a way around that. But at whatever price you pay or method you play it via, it's worth it. It's so fucking oppressive, and it got to me. Like, it really got to me, and I am so going back. I need to see how this fucking thing ends, even though it scares the absolute fucking shit out of me. Regardless of what you pick up from this bunch, I hope you liked what you saw. And as always, if you have any recommendations of your own, feel free to comment down below or tweet them at me or tell me in the Discord. And it is a few days after Halloween, but you should still continue to have a spooky time for the rest of the year. We need to normalize spooky November. It shouldn't be pre-Christmas. Or maybe we should normalize spooky Christmas. That would be cool. Well, until next time, have a good one. Bye bye.